Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. The first time I heard that, I was like, I don't get this, but this is dope. And I need to understand it, right? Like, I don't know why I like this. This sounds are gritty and grimy and it doesn't sound good in the traditional way, but it sounds so good to me. I need to understand why. That's that feeling that I try to give with art, because everybody else is already doing the normal thing. So they can do that. I don't want to do the normal thing.
Yeah, well, I definitely see like a pattern of experimentation and doing interesting things and just thinking outside the box. And, I'd love to, ask you, how do you stay inspired, or or do you do anything specific to kind of, I don't know, just break out of those boxes when you want to like make unique sounds, whether you're working for yourself or for other artists?
Yeah. And I really do try to do it with other artists within the lens of what they're doing. So try to,
Sure.
If I'm mixing a record, yes, it's work for hire. It's what they want. But if you call me, it's because you know what I do, And when I get a new client, I'm like, what have you heard that I've done? I want to make sure I'm not being hired just because I'm a guy who presses buttons, but because I'm a person who's going to bring a perspective to the music. I'm lucky to be established enough and be busy enough where I can do that. And if something doesn't fit for me, I don't have to take every gig. Because I could hypothetically mix a bluegrass record, and I think that I'm a good enough mixer that I can mix outside of my usual genres. But, I don't get bluegrass calls because I'm not that person, and that's fine. But I want someone to come to me for what I can bring to the table, not just that I have a table.
Yeah.
But,
that seems to be the move, by the way.
Yeah. It's
for longevity. Yeah.
I think, when you're doing what everybody else is doing, then you're replaceable. When you're doing what only you can do, the people that come to you need you to do that thing.
Yes.
And, as far as your actual question, I digress a lot. I know that.
No, it's cool. I love what you're saying, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation.
Good.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure the audience is
good,
too.
Good. Me too. Inspiration's hard because it can be kind of hard. A call comes in and it's like, okay, we need a beat for this. I've been doing some writing for podcasts lately where it's like, okay, we want a theme for this podcast. We want it to be like this. And it's like, okay, it's a little bit of not connect the dots, but, paint by numbers. I know what they're looking for. But I like to get inspired by non-musical things. Not jaded, but having started my essentially professional career at 15, I've heard a lot of songs and I've mixed a lot of records, and not the music doesn't inspire me. It very much does and can, but I look at other things to kind of spark that creativity and see what was the mindset? I say I like landscape paintings, specifically the Hudson River Valley school of very epic, big paintings with big landscapes and big sweeping mountains and all kinds of stuff. And that's how I think about my time-based effects. If I'm I want this thing to stretch all the way out and feel very lush, some painting with a big lush field of green or something. You know what I mean? I kind of take other disciplines of art and see how I can take what those artists did and translate it into what I do. I've gotten to the point now where, I know how to use the tools, right? I've got good compressors. I know how to use them. I've got all the tools. I've got the software. I've got the hardware. I've got the speakers. So now that I have these things, how do I manipulate them to get to the root of what we're doing, which is still the music? I love the gear. I love all the buttons. I got some stuff just got shipped to me today, a couple new things. But it's not just to have the buttons in the room. It's how can I use this tool to take what's in my head and put it out there for people to hear. That's what it has to be, is how do I make that translation? So yeah, I love, I think maybe it was Da Vinci's studio. We were on vacation in Europe. We were somewhere and we went to, I believe it was Da Vinci's studio. I'm probably wrong. I'm probably butchering the story now. But they had what is called definitely gonna butcher this. Kunstkammern, I believe. It's like kind of like a curiosity closet where painters would collect objects from wherever, all over the world. Like this one, I had like a marble, like the foot of a marble statue, and like the skin of an anaconda hanging, and like some, like some paintings from like the Far East, and then like a tortoise shell, and just kind of in there, just like cool, pretty, unusual things or whatever, just kind of hanging around. And you might just go in there and look and be like, oh man, the detail on that pinky toe on that statue is just crazy. And look how they got in. And then you start thinking, oh, well, the curves on that, I don't know, the curves in a certain way that reminds me of a swoop. Maybe that swoop is something that I'm going to make a sound like that, and I'll sample that, and that'll be part of my track. I think a lot of it comes from, I started out as a sample-based producer, sampling a lot of vinyl. I don't do that as much now because nobody can clear anything. But it was the idea of taking a found sound on a record, it might be the break and it's very obvious, or it might just be a weird little yelp or squeal or whatever in the background, and finding unique sounds to bring in and make something dope. And then moving away from that, it was like, okay, but anything can be a sound, right? And that's kind of what took me to Press Play. It's like, well, if I can, ego talking, but like I can sample anything, right? If you give me a sound, I can sample it, I can flip it, I can make a beat out of it and make something dope. So my whole process with Press Play was, as long as I can get sounds out of these paintings, I can flip it and I can make something dope. So then it just became, the challenge was just creating the sounds. Once I had the sounds, then I'm just making music. Then I'm back in my wheelhouse. Right. But getting the sounds out, getting something usable and pleasant or harsh or whatever, once I had that, I'm good. So that's how I feel about inspiration is, once I get something that excites me, maybe I went to the museum, maybe I watched a really good basketball game, maybe there was a great movie on or whatever. When you get that kind of excitement, like in the middle of your chest, your heart starts pumping a little bit, and it's like, yo, that shit is dope. That's all I need. And then I can get in, and I just have to translate that energy. And sure, it doesn't work every time, but, I've been doing all right with it.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. Yeah. Just using the outside world and bringing it in and then bringing it back out, I guess.
Well, because that's so relatable too. It's like, it's a new view on something. Let's say I sampled a picture of the Eiffel Tower. You've all seen it, but you haven't heard it, right? You haven't heard it in that way that I can bring it to you. But you still know the Eiffel Tower, so it's going to resonate. And if I do it right and I make it a way where it's still, everything works together, now it's a true new perspective on it. You can look at the Eiffel Tower, you can put on my Eiffel Tower record and say, oh, okay, I kind of see it, or I'm leaving myself open to how he related to it. And that's really what I'm asking for, is like, be open to where I'm trying to go with it, and maybe I can take you somewhere.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation, super inspirational. I do want to get to the sauce segment before we run out of time.
Yes, yeah.
So you sent me a track called Stone Fruit by Arm & Hammer.
Yeah.
And that was on that record that you actually mentioned earlier in this interview.
Yes.
Haram with The Alchemist. So let's have a listen to this for about 90 seconds, and you could talk a little bit about what went into it.
Sure.
Sound cool?
Yeah.
Control, but I can't cramp my space to grow. Comfort's stubborn, gets us through. I got so much left to undo. I don't wanna lose control, but I can't cramp my space to grow. Comfort's stubborn, gets us through. I got so much left to undo. Chaos dissolves, stills what's true. I have so much more left to do. It never ends like I've been. I call for insight beyond men. I walk through doors, my name's on no list. Change is not for sure a slow shift. Glacial tides, the tides are rising. Got too high diving, I lied when I really came in on a cyclone. Disciple, scribe the scroll with my eyes closed. Knives thrown, black Congo, blowing smoke, slapping congas.
This is so out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
It's
it.
just like
I love
cross genre. I don't like. How would you define this genre wise? Like, I don't even know.
I mean, genres is so hard. I do so much. I'm just like, somebody else can figure out what to call it. I mean, to me,
the bass is R&B, right? Like the vocals are rap.
There's so many different elements to it. To me, it's still hip hop, because hip hop is always just born out of bringing in different elements and flipping them and mashing them into one thing. But yeah, there's a lot to this one. So this is the last song on that album, and it's different. I mean, first, Elucid is the first vocal that you hear, and very much singing. He came. So I recorded, mixed, and mastered that. The whole album was produced by The Alchemist. Shout out to him. He's super legendary. And he and Armand Hammer talked about coming together and doing this album. And Al even said off the jump, he was like, I want to come in, I want to do an Armand Hammer album. I don't want it to be like other stuff that I'm doing and just put them on top of that. I like what they do. I want to bring it together. And then, it was agreed that I would mix it because I'm a big part of Armand Hammer's sound. I've mixed all their projects. But both Armand Hammer's Elucid and Billy Woods' co-owner of Backwoods. And so this has all been a very long time in the coming. Since I moved to New York, this is like everything kind of led to Stone Fruit, which is different a bit, even than the rest of the album, because Elucid's singing on it, and it's more melodic than people might expect from Armand Hammer, which is, they're, pull no punches, pretty aggressive rap group, but they have other sides, and we want to explore this stuff. And so, recording the song, Elucid was like, I want to try something. I want to do something real melodic on here, and just try some different stuff. So just run it, and then we'll work through it, whatever. That was the second take. We did that. We did 2 takes of that, and I was like, yo, you can't do another one, because that shit is just so good, and there's just a perfect rawness to it. There's vulnerability to it in a very overly masculine genre that we exist in. And even a lot of music that they put out is aggressive and very masculine, and this switches that vibe into something very different, which is why I wanted to choose this one, because I don't know, it's just something that's very dope and very different to me, and challenges what anybody thought that they were going to hear, especially on this track, especially after the rest of the album, which is, very, there's moods and waves, but that shit hits hard. And then we end on Stone Fruit, and it's just kind of this anthemic statement, and so we're doing it. And it was one of those sessions where like the take is rolling, and you're like, yo, this is the one. As long as nothing goes wrong, the mic doesn't crackle, man, I hope the studio next door doesn't turn up the monitors real loud, because he's killing it. I hope he doesn't like flub a word. If we get this one, this is the one, and like I'm not even.
I know that feeling.
I'm not even breathing. I'm holding my breath right there. Like don't touch any. Don't even look at anything too hard. And we got it. And I was like, yo,
don't ruin the vibe.
Don't ruin the vibe. Don't move. Don't breathe. Don't do nothing. And we finished it. And I was like, yo, that is the one. And Elucid came out, and he heard it. And he was like, yo, I think you're really right. And then we did something I've been wanting to do a lot through my career. Growing up on so much Motown and In the House and on so much Marvin Gaye, one of the dope things about What's Going On, that a lot of
bass line.
Well, the bass line for sure, but there's a dual lead vocal on What's Going On, and a lot of times people don't necessarily catch it. It's not. There's 2 leads, and they're not necessarily in time. They're not necessarily harmonizing, but they're doing the lead vocal basically twice. And I don't know if